period in my life. I was at a point, and I think that adolescence is very influential. I'd already been smoking cigarettes since I was 9, kind of experimenting, but I started regularly smoking at the age of 13 because my parents smoked, and so it was there. It was an easy access. At 13, I also started drinking excessively and doing a lot of drugs. Whatever I could get my hands on, I didn't really care about what it was. I continued this lifestyle all through my teens and into my early 20s. And during this time, in my early 20s, my mother ended up taking a job in Iraq as a civilian contractor. This was the first time in history that the civilians were embedded with the military for the operation that they were doing. So that was Operation Iraqi Freedom. And she kept telling me, Christmas, this is what you need to do. You need to come over. This is going to be an amazing culture experience for you. You'll be able to have some money to pay for school. And at the time, I was working at a bar, drinking excessively, doing drugs, and having a party lifestyle as a 21, 22-year-old should, or at least I thought. and she recognized the path that I was on, and she was willing to put me into an active war zone to save my life. That's a mama's love. So I harassed a company for 6 months. I applied every week for 6 months until they hired me, and I got hired on as a laundry attendant. You brought me your laundry and I gave you a ticket, and hopefully 3 days later it came back clean and not lost. We had a lot of claims. So I went overseas in Iraq, and this was actively a war zone. So this is in January 2004, where we were just kind of getting our feet on the ground. You would think that I was prepared. I quit drugs enough to pass the drug test and would, sit in class. True story, it's funny. Sit in class and listen to what we had to do when we had incoming. And I know that I heard what I was supposed to do, but there was no practical application, so we didn't practice it. I should have paid attention a little closer. Within the first 2 weeks of being in country, we had incoming, meaning mortars or rockets coming into your camp. And it was so close in proximity, it was about 300 to 400 meters from where I was sleeping. And there's specific sounds that you are familiar with, and I didn't recognize any of these sounds. And so it's kind of like when you're sleeping and you hear a noise in your house that's not right, and the quietest noise will take you out of a dead sleep. This was my first experience with incoming. The boom and the crash was deafening. I immediately, knee-jerk reaction, jumped out of bed, landed on both my feet, and looked around. Did everything wrong. I was supposed to roll out of bed. I was supposed to put on my Kevlar. I was supposed to radio in that I was okay. Did everything absolutely wrong. I'm standing there looking around. And in this moment, I had such a clear thought process. It was grossly apparent to me a few things. One, you've always sleep with clothes on in a war zone. 2, you got to be able to run fast. Priorities happen. And 2, I recognized the behaviors of my lifestyle were setting me up to end up killing myself. And it sounds drastic for me to declare that, but that's absolutely what went through my mind. I thought, oh my God, I am going to die of my own choices. I was smoking, and civilians had a different rules, so I was also drinking in country. We had a bar that we could bring our own bottle to. And then 3, I'm in an active war zone, and I'm still making these really poor choices about my lifestyle. And it came to me that I needed to not necessarily become a superhero fitness freak, but I needed to make a better decision for myself. And that stemmed from my desire of not wanting to die. In life, wherever you are, you're either pushed away from something that you don't want to be associated with, or you're drawn towards something that you want to emulate more. And at this point in my fitness pendulum, it was the first step to be pushing away from that bad lifestyle of choices, negative choices that I was making. It didn't happen overnight. This was what we call the awareness process. I was aware of the bad choices that I was making, so I finally wanted to make a change. And I had to build some confidence to make that change. It took me, the first thing that I decided to do was to quit smoking. And given I had almost been smoking for a decade, it was pretty, regularly. people were like, oh, you're 22, you'll be fine. Well, a decade is a decade of bad behavior. So I decided that I was going to quit smoking. It took me 3 months to build my confidence and to prepare mentally for this. 3 months. And I quit cold turkey. I warned everybody. I was like, look, I'm just going to be a raging bee. Deal with it. So I set everybody up for success, okay? Quit smoking, and a couple months later, I decided that I was going to run a mile because I hadn't done that since I was in middle school, and I was forced to, so I really only did it, like I kind of sped walk in order to get a passing grade, barely. And the smartest thing that I did was recruit a friend, which was also the stupidest thing that I did. So we go into the gym, and in Iraq, you don't run outside. You run on treadmills, okay? And on treadmills, you can actually set the pace where all you have to do is pick up your feet, right? It kind of works for you, the beautiful thing about treadmills. And I decided I was going to go run this mile. So he ran his mile beside me. He finished his mile, and I was like halfway through with mine. And I was like, I'm done. He's like, no, Christmas, you have to finish. You started this, you finished this. I was like, okay, fine, slow it down. I ended up, you could have walked the mile that I ran that day. I was 22 years old. I wasn't grossly overweight. I was actually pretty underweight, and I should have been able to handle this. I got off. I hated him. I was like, we're not fitness friends anymore. I went home, and it took me a week to recover. I hobbled around like a broken little girl for a whole week, and that was devastating. So I was like, I hate fitness. This is not for me. I quit smoking. I'll eat some grilled chicken. We're good. So I was pretty discouraged with any kind of exercise regimen because my first experience was traumatic. And I talk about this especially for you guys that are curious about CrossFit because it's the coach's responsibility to make sure that they water it down and put you in the shallow end, that you leave feeling successful, and that you leave wanting to come back, because I didn't want to go back. And it was just a mile. It's funny. So I took a hiatus from any kind of fitness whatsoever, and then 3 months later, out of pure boredom and harassment from my friends of be like, you need to get in the gym, Christmas, you're eating too many cheesecakes, that I ended up going to the gym again, but I found the elliptical. And I loved the elliptical. I was good at the elliptical. And it's funny because it's true, and people were like, the elliptical, really, Christmas? It was my gateway fitness drug. I got on the elliptical, and I was good. So I'd pump, and it was something that I could do passive. Just get on there. I got on there for 20, 30 minutes, couple days out of the week, and it was it. And I found the first motivation of my life where I would be there cruising, and then, of course, I'm in this, military area, and these cute Marines would walk by, and then I'd just start pumping, right? Motivation, external motivation. Cute boys make one work hard. And I'm just like sweating, and as soon as they turn around and walk away, I'm like, shit, okay. Oh, thank God they turned. I just almost stopped. It's like coaches perusing the gym floor. As soon as your coach comes by, you're the best athlete in the world. You're an Olympian. They turn their back, and you're like, I'm done. I'm retired. So that was the first time that I ever kind of wanted to apply myself. And yeah, cute people are good motivation. But after a few weeks, I saw a difference in my body. It wasn't apparent. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I have like all these biceps now. It's crazy. But it was just something different. My body felt different. My clothes were fitting different. I was sleeping better. And I was like, well, this is kind of neat. I like what's happening. And then I found that my real motivation was internal. It was something that I was doing that was eliciting a positive result to my body and ultimately my mental and emotional state as well. And that's when I discovered that I really love what I'm doing and I want to do it more. So I was like, okay, I love the elliptical. What do we do with these things over here? And I had to literally have somebody take me around and tell me what a dumbbell was and tell me, because at that point it was just all machines and then free weights. It wasn't this combination of what I do now is CrossFit. And they were like, okay, Christmas. It's like you guys talking to somebody that doesn't understand any kind of IT stuff. You're like, you turn the computer on, this is your mouse. Very primitive explanation. And I just got into it. A couple months of really kind of being consistent and really loving what I see with the changes in my body, I discovered CrossFit. And my friend was like, you need to do this. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. He showed me a video. It was these 3 girls the same size as I am, and they were getting after it. They were doing things that I'd never seen done before. They were air squatting below parallel, and they were doing these cleans that I was like, they were lifting such big weights, and then doing these gymnastic things, muscle ups. And if you're familiar with CrossFit and you watch this movie or this video, make sure you Google CrossFit Nasty Girls. Make sure that CrossFit is in there. Can't promise what else you're going to find, but you guys are smart enough to figure it out, okay? And I loved it because these girls were my size. They still were feminine because at this time you were either a runner or you were a bodybuilder. You either looked like you needed to eat something or you looked like you just ate a runner. There was no middle ground. I didn't know. And so I was like, well, I kind of, don't want to be either one of those. And then here I found that these girls were this middle ground, and it was beautiful. And they were teeny, and they were badass. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Because the girl cries at the end. I was like, I want to do a workout that makes me cry. Be careful what you wish for. This might be a little TMI, but every year I do a workout that sometimes several times a year that elicits like a crying, but not because it's terrible, but because your body has reached its full capacity physically that you have no other release other than an emotional cry. And it's pretty incredible that you can actually physically push yourself to that level. So I started doing CrossFit on my own about a year, and then I got into Baghdad with some of these guys. And these guys were prior military. The company that I worked with was prior military, all special forces. So you're talking about Marine Recon, SEALs, Rangers, the alpha of the alpha. And then here I am, and I walk up to this guy. I heard that there was one guy in the camp that did CrossFit. So I was like, hey, I hear you do CrossFit. And like testosterone is an amazing thing. Yeah. I'm like, hey, I do CrossFit. Can we CrossFit together? Maybe. Okay. Turned around the next day, they watched me try and do this CrossFit workout, Diane, which is handstand push-ups and deadlifts. My handstand push-ups were like I was just like raising the roof. And I think I was using 85 pounds for the deadlift with the prescribed or what suggested is 155 for women. And it was atrocious. I wouldn't have invited me to work out at all. I'm like, let that girl by herself. And I ended up, they took me into their group, but really only to see how much I could tolerate before I quit. And little did they know that I'm really stubborn. And I kept coming back. And they're the ones that taught me, like I was saying earlier before, is that once you start something, you finish it. You hold yourself accountable to your actions, so you apply integrity, and you always just keep your head high. There's no other option other than to finish. And I took that into not only my workouts, but my life's work with my gym, my relationships, and my businesses. And that's where I've really been able to thrive and find success. And success isn't because you're instantly good at something. I was terrible, okay? 10 years in, you eventually find your niche. But it was through failure after failure after failure, and my hashtag is relentless life, is because I refuse to quit. I refuse to give up. And it's through that due diligence and that I found success. I finally got a muscle up. I finally was able to deadlift over 200 pounds. I was finally able to build my own business. I was finally able to write my own nutrition seminar and have the confidence to go out and teach it. I was finally able to write my own book and now dictate my own schedule, right? And it's because of those guys that I have such gratitude for. So one small soapbox that I always kind of include in whatever kind of talk that I do is that the servicemen of our country don't decide where they go and why they go there. They just execute somebody else's commands. So please support your troops. And they're the reason that we're able to sit here and talk about it today. So I came home, and through force, My friend told me that I needed to apply and do a competition. And I was like, no, I'm not an athlete. I'm not a competitor. I just like to CrossFit. He was like, no, Christmas, you're going. I'm driving you there. I'm entering you. Just go have a good time. And I was like, I hate you. Fine, but I'm only going to have fun. I'm not going to apply myself. And he was like, okay, great. I went, and the first workout, I'm like waving to my friends, and they're like, Christmas, go. You're supposed to be working out. I'm like, I'm supposed to be having fun. But the point of that is that he wanted me to try something. I didn't want to do it. I had already this preconceived notion of what I was going to experience. I knew that I wasn't going to like it. I knew I wasn't a competitor, but he was like, just do it. And I did it, and then this magical thing happened. This little monster inside of me woke up, and it wanted to eat souls. It wanted to win, and it wasn't against one person, but it was for myself. I wanted to show myself what I was truly capable of and hitting my true potential. And that's magical. And that can be applied not just to fitness, but to your own life's work. And since then, I still call it my little monster. But something happens on that competition floor, or when I'm approached with any kind of competition situation, or like where I need to excel and do my best, that little monster wakes up, and there is nothing else that is between me and that goal other than myself. Like, how bad do I want this? And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and I thank him all the time for that. He's actually my business partner with Invoke now. Same thing happened when I got into NASCAR. I was duped. They called me, and they were like, hey, Christmas, you want to come play NASCAR? They said, play NASCAR. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to drive some fast cars, assumed. I got there, and they were like, we're going to do this pit crew challenge, and you're going to change a tire. And I was like, no. I knew I had that preconceived conviction of what was going to happen. I knew that I wasn't going to like it, even though I had never experienced it. And they're like, okay. And I was there. I'd already driven all the way over there 3 hours. And I was like, well, I can't just bounce. And I was like, I'll go in and then find a reason to leave. And as soon as I heard what was going on, I saw this crazy orchestra of people and chaos. And I was like, I want to be in there. Can I go play with it? They're like, that's what you're going to be doing today, Christmas. And I was like, well, why didn't you tell me we were going to have fun? And I did it, and I loved it. Beat the boys. And the hand speed of a NASCAR Sprint Cup, so that's the highest level you can go. That's what you actually see on TV. And that is a standard hand speed is 1.2 seconds for 5 lug nuts. That's pretty, and you have to have like accuracy. I could geek out about that for another 3 hours. It's intense. And my hand speed that day was 1.7 seconds. So I was only half a second from being at the highest level. First day I tried it, 4th attempt. I got a call 2 weeks later. They're like, hey, you want to come play NASCAR? And I was like, do I get to change tires? They're like, yes. I was like, I'm there. So I jumped through hoops to make it work to where I could pursue this interest. And I had no intention on what it was really happening. I thought I was just going to go play NASCAR for a year and kind of experience it and then go back home. But the reason I didn't say no is because, one, I had such an obsession with it, the same way I had an obsession with CrossFit, and it had been so good to me. And I just wanted to try it. So I started to not say no and say yes, even though my life didn't exactly permit it. It wasn't saying, hey, you have nothing else to do, go play NASCAR. I forged it into my life and had a lot of great benefits from that. The point of this is that there's going to be a lot of things that come up in your life that you are certain, without a doubt, conviction that you do not like, or you know that you're not going to appreciate, or you know you're not going to enjoy. And I ask you to challenge yourself to reserve that thought or that experience until you try it. You don't know until you try it. And I know that we always hear that, but the few things that I was certain in my life that I did not like, and I'd even tried one and I didn't like it. Running fitness was not for me. But those are the few things that actually changed the entire course of my life and made me a better person and cultivated this positive lifestyle that I live today. So before you knock it, you better try it, because you don't know if that is going to be a fork in your road, or at least then you can have an educated decision or an educated experience on that topic, and you can say with conviction and experience that you don't like it. Peanut butter on eggs. It's delicious. Don't scrunch your nose at me, baby. You haven't tried it yet. Anyway, so I say this talking about food because people, they look at the diet regimen and they're like, no, I'm not going to like that. That isn't going to work. Well, have you tried it? Did you apply yourself? Did you give it a certain amount of time period to educate yourself and have that experience? Probably not. So before you say no and close the door on something that could be absolutely amazing, then at least go in and you haven't really lost much. It won't derail your life to give something a little try unless you're going to go like base jumping or something. That might be a little bit more adventurous than a diet regimen. So I just ask and beg of that of you, and that's really, I like to dive into my background. The reason the book was created was because I kept getting questions on my diet regimen, and I've experimented with myself on diet regimens for years and years, and that's how this was created. It was cherry picked from other diet regimens that I tried, and I took what I liked, left what I didn't, and I've been practicing this for 10 years as well. Eventually, I got tired of answering emails, created the nutrition seminar, and from there, the book was spawned. So there you have the book. Thank you so much for listening. You guys you laughed at my jokes, so I appreciate that. Sometimes people don't. I'm just kind of up here entertaining myself. I know that we didn't talk much about the food, but if you do nothing else, just take the foundation of balancing your protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Educate yourself on what they are. It's in the book. And then emphasizing that on the quality scale of the premium foods versus acceptable foods versus really bad foods. And if you do nothing else but to kind of balance those three, every meal, every snack, that triplet, that trifecta, with a balance of the food scale, then you're going to be leaps and bounds better than somebody else. That was me getting on the elliptical. If you want to get into the food CrossFit concept, then weigh and measure and dial it in for approximately 3 weeks. You don't have to do it all the time. I barely ever weigh and measure my food now anymore because I've been applying this for so long that it's second nature to me now. It will get easier, I promise. Thank you. First question?
Yes.
Let's go.
So it sounds like you advocated balancing your macros per meal. I usually hear about people balancing it like per day, like IFYM, etc.
Yeah.
Anything you can say about trying it one way versus the other?
It's like I set this up for you. I love it. So balancing your macros per meal is going to elicit a positive hormonal response and keep you balanced throughout the day versus if you balance your macros throughout the day, you can still have a carb overload and an insulin response to foods, so your hormonal response is going up and down. Versus if you couple it for every meal, it's going to keep that hormonal response in the same layer. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I love the concept of balanced macros per day, but I like to break it down even further because you can still have some major health issues if you're spiking your insulin on a daily basis. Yeah.
So it sounds like that applies more to the carbs than to the protein versus fat.
The carbs are really the dominant hormonal response that kind of is what people struggle with. It's what we want most, right? I mean, a recovering heroin addict doesn't walk around with grilled chicken. It walks around with sugar and sweets. It makes us feel good, which is why we love it. So isolating that, then it's going to be much more disruptive than your proteins and your fats. However, they work best together. It's like this trifecta, this team of three or triplets that you really don't want to separate. They work in a good synergy together versus separated.
Thanks.
Thank you. That's like the first time that nobody's ever hesitated on asking a question, especially in the front row. Only at Google. I love it.
Yeah, I was just curious so when you first started working out, it sounded like the way your body looked and your fitness kind of went hand in hand on the same road. But I'm kind of curious on the way you see CrossFit women going a lot, they're getting like bigger and stronger, which is fine. But you're not big. But what would you say whenever those roads start to diverge where, say, a woman wants to look a certain way, but if she wants to get better at CrossFit and you can't do both, what would you say to that?
You know, that's such a, people get so wrapped up into this. My body has changed tremendously over the last 10 years, but I'm still very petite. I actually still wear the same size of clothes that I did when I started CrossFit. So my clothes didn't change, just my bubbly body did change. And often we see the CrossFit Games, which just happened. We see the female competitors at the CrossFit Games, and they are the exception. They are the 1% of CrossFitters that are going to go to the Games. They made their training and their food regimen in order to be able to perform at a certain level. It is the same thing for any other sport. It's a specialty. They are at the top of the pyramid there. Where women generally look at, they're like, oh, I don't want to do CrossFit because I don't want to get bulky. And they see the CrossFit Games athletes who are beautiful bodied because their body, they're demanding work of their body, and that's the response that they're eliciting is the aesthetics, right? So I think what you're asking is women that want to have a little bit of a leaner frame, but they want to be badass in CrossFit, right? Yeah. You're going to, over time, that psychological aspect is going to change for a female. They're going to get stronger, but not get super bulky. So as soon as they start to realize that they can keep their aesthetics pretty close to what they started with a little bit more like abs and nice butt, you know, like it's just a good response. That they're just going to keep this nice slim but muscular look without looking like a Games competitor. I am the strongest that I've ever been in my life, but I still keep a very sleek body. And it's not changing my workout regimen. You can change your workout regimen to appeal to the aesthetics that you're looking for. But I just tell people to keep lifting and to keep doing the workouts and allow your body to work for you. It's amazing what we can push our bodies to, and the byproduct is a gorgeous muscular body. They won't get to that level unless it's intentional. Same thing as like a bodybuilder. You can go in and do curls, bicep extensions. You're not going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger unless you start pumping things into your body that shouldn't be pumping into, right? And I'm not saying that CrossFit athletes at the highest level do that rampantly, but they change their entire lifestyle to get that, not look, but that performance. So really, I just tell them to keep doing what they're doing, and they'll be okay. They'll survive. And if they start getting to a point where they think that they're a little bit larger, then you can change the programming to complement the aesthetic that they want. It's really in their control. Yeah.
So what is your current training regimen like?
Well, carrying my suitcase through the airport right now. But it depends on the time of year. Right now I'm preparing for Nationals, which is a weightlifting competition in August. And so I'm doing a lot of weightlifting, a lot of explosive power movements, and just trying to get my lifting numbers up. And when I go home, I'll train 6 days a week and do 2 to 3 workouts each of those days. During my off season, I only attend class. One day, like once a day, I just do the class workout. So I personally, I ebb and flow the workload because I want to be able to be in my 80s or 90s and chasing my grandchildren. The lifespan, the shelf life of a competitive athlete is very, very short. And you're seeing this kind of even happening this year. Annie Thorisdottir was injured and she had to bow out. Look how long she reigned supreme before you start seeing injuries at that high of a level. And I prefer to have a longevity in my athletic career versus be the top for 3 years. So it ebbs and flows.
So in that 2 to 3 days, are you doing like strength training in the morning, then your CrossFit style workouts, like your intensity, or intervals kind of at night?
I don't like to go to the gym twice in a day. So what I normally will do is in an hour, now it's taken about 2 hours or so, I'll go in and I'll do a weightlifting component, just some kind of complex, and then I do a strength component, and after that I'll do auxiliary, so it's kind of like a sled push and GHD sit-up, something to really get me gassed. And then at the end I'll do some mobility stabilizing, and that's pretty standard, or skill work. That's pretty standard for at least twice a week. That volume is very difficult for me because I just don't need the volume anymore.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I like the technical questions.
Thank you so much for being
All right.
here.
Thank you.
There's books in the back.